to the Overplayed podcast, the home of sports and sports gaming in your ear every single Thursday. My name is GoodGameBro, one half of the Overplayed podcast. The other half is the man that is unfortunately or fortunately not wearing the hat today, but rocking the debonair. I saw a little hair flip you just did, by the way. Mills.
I got it if I need to put it on. No, I'm getting ready to get, what do they call it? The coif. I'm growing the hair just out long enough so I can do the coif where it goes up and kind of like swerves around, you know? I'm gonna look hot. As the kids say. I think the kids say hot.
I've had the same haircut literally my entire life. I had a bowl
ever since
cut
I've
for a
known
little
you,
bit,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've had the same haircut, so I don't know anything. I don't know what the coif is, to be honest. But
I would love to see you. Can we do a bet sometime where the bet is you growing your hair out for 6 months?
There's no shot.
I literally, it would be, I don't want you to shave anything. We've already gone through the shaving thing. You won't do it. You're too scared. But for you to grow your hair out for 6 months, it would tickle me in places that I've never been touched. I'm just telling you.
I think the longest my mom grew my hair out when I was younger. And I legit had like a bowl cut pretty much, but then
I want 6 months and school pictures. I want like a school picture that we can have up in like on Rare Drop, just
like my
as
hands
like
on books or whatever.
Yeah, like your employee photo, if just for that. That's what I want.
Photoshop is your best bet, man. Other than fantasizing about me with the bowl cut, Mills, what have you been up to?
Not much. It's been pretty much the same thing. I will say Riders Republic came out last week. And I'm having an absolute ball. It is, for somebody who's as much of a fan of the Forza Horizon series as I am, and also a fan of like SSX Tricky, I liked Steep. Steep was missing something for me, which is ironic that Steep came from Ubisoft and so did Riders Republic. The thing that's missing in Steep is there in Riders Republic, and that's the fun factor. Steep was a very sim-oriented, snowboarding, skiing experience, where Riders Republic is downhill bikes, skiing, snowboarding, rocket wings where you can fly around, fly suits like the flying squirrel suits and stuff, and they have like these things called funkies. So the first funky you get is a bike with an ice cream cart attached to it. Or like you get a one-footed snowboard where your other foot's hanging out when you do tricks, and there's like costumes, like there's skin. It's Ubisoft. There's skins.
Sure.
I bought an elephant skin that's dressed up like a bodyguard with like the black suit with the black tie and like the black sunglasses and like an earpiece. And he's my snowboarding skin because you can have a skin for each different vehicle.
Oh,
dude,
that's dope.
And that's the thing is you can earn a lot of the stuff you're doing. You can earn new equipment as it goes along. It has the same kind of feeling. I don't know did you play The Crew when it came out?
Briefly, but not very long.
So the idea though is like everybody's on the same map. There's events going on the whole time. You earn new cars. The cars are done by like numbers on their like octane value or whatever it is. The faster, more grip. Same idea. It's got a fantastic sense of speed. There's a first-person view that you can get into that really amps that up a little bit. The tricks are not hard to pull off. Everything's with the triggers and the right stick, left stick, and then the face buttons or the jump buttons. It's a really fun experience. The map is gigantic. They were smart. They didn't make you travel across the map if you didn't want to. There's fast travel points that are always near everything. They have things called helicopter rides that can literally drop you off directly if you want to go somewhere that legitimately you really don't need to use all that often. And it's really, again, the thing that Steep was missing, fun, which again is cool because Forza is coming out this week too. So
yeah, I'm super hyped for that. This is coming out Thursday, so I'm fine, but I've had a copy. I have not touched it because I want to just jump in and probably gonna do a little bit on stream and run through it. And the Forza series I have loved that for such a long time. And the Horizon series is, I think, just so good. It's so well done. There's so much to do. And just like you're talking about a Riders Republic, which I am picking up, I'm just hyped to be able to run into a game and not feel the competitive nature of like, I gotta do all this different stuff. I gotta get first. Like those games are fun even if you aren't getting first place, because it's about, again, the journey we talk about all the time. But like, there's so much cool stuff. And Forza Horizon, you're always discovering stuff, right? There are cars to discover, hidden sheds, hidden objectives, crazy jumps. There's so much replayability. It it takes you back to like just when you the early game or the early days of sandbox games is just sort of how I feel playing those. So I'm hyped for both of those titles.
And that's the cool thing with Riders Republic for me as well, because it doesn't focus on winning. Like there are secondary like stars to be earned by winning on different difficulties, but a lot of what it is finish the event. The people you're playing against, the entire map is filled with people the entire time, and what they are ghosts of everybody that have been around. And then the people you play on the tracks are ghost times of other people. A lot like again, a lot like Forza Horizon 5 or Forza Horizon the whole series. And then they have a thing called Mass Race that picks up. It notifies you there's a mass race starting in 3 minutes, and then you get to the mass race starting point, and it's legitimately 60 live racers all going down the same hill at the same time. And let me tell you what chaos is. Chaos is people not understanding how to turn on the first hairpin and you getting flung 50 feet off the course because 18 people slid underneath of you and you NHL 15 Crosby'd yourself into the crowd. It is really, really fun. They've done an excellent job on that. And again, as you said, Friday, man, I can't wait, dude. Forza Horizon is all. I love Forza Motorsport. Don't get me wrong, but like you said, Forza Horizon, the fun factor that it brings with everything it did. You remember 4 when they introduced stunt races where you were racing against like massive vehicles, like a train or like a massive plane, dude.
The jets
and then they
flying through,
and then the Hot Wheels expansion. Just they get it. They understand. Hold on a second. You zip this up real quick. I'm wearing a PlayStation t-shirt for any of you wondering as I'm fawning over Forza, but yeah, Xbox call me. But yeah, like just really fun factor is something that is missing from so much these days, and both these companies get that.
Amen. I can't wait. Make sure, again, even if you're a diehard, just traditional sports games, or if you haven't even jumped into something like that, both of these games are 100% worth your time, especially if you have friends that run them.
Mm-hmm.
It's an easy pickup and experience for you.
And both of us, I mean, if you're looking to play with anybody, both of our communities are both going to be playing both of these games. So Facebook.gg/GoodGameBro or Twitch.tv/Mills. We're definitely going to be playing these for, I'm sure, Friday night, but probably throughout the week, because I think GGB over there has got a contract with Xbox to make sure he plays at a certain amount of hours a day. So they're going to watch you. I know they will. I know how Big Green goes. I
wish Xbox called me.
Anyway, let's get into it. So we're talking about what we're playing this week. I can tell you what we're not going to be playing for a while, and that's EA Sports PGA Tour. They were originally slated to come out in spring of 2022. It looks like they're delayed without a release date now. Never had a hard release date before, but it's disconcerting considering spring is kind of like the golf time for release for games. When we think EA Sports in the fall, we think FIFA, NHL, historically NBA Live when it was coming out, Madden. Even over the summer, you would have to think when college football gets a date, it'll more than likely be somewhere around July, I would think, right before Madden. So for this to get pushed into possibly that mess of releases, I think would be a bad idea. So we're talking about a game releasing maybe outside of spring 2022 now. I think fall would be almost like a death blow for it. I don't think a golf game would go well during the normal sports game frenzy. Where do you think this goes? Is it 2023 at this point?
If I were them, I think I'd hold off to 2023. What they essentially need is to have a robust golf title, right? They need a lot. I think you look at what 2K has done on the PGA golf side. They've done so well from a mechanic standpoint. Their communities that they sort of have are good, not great in my opinion. Their communities are still bare bones, right? There's not crossplay there. There's not the ability to sort of have like there's more structure. I sort of want there, more customization. I sort of want from what they essentially have, but there is a very good foundation what they have there. I think EA could really come hard in 2023 if they did that, but look, they're going to miss the Masters, which is huge because they have that big Masters partnership, which is it's probably the only thing we really know about the game, other than I think they've detailed it as being a next gen golf game. So we know two things: next gen golf game, and that is the Masters. The Masters are in April of 2022. Sounds like, again, spring. They're not going to hit that, so they're going to be past that. My assumption is July, because they're going to hit that NCAA sort of like window. But the other thing they could do is make this EA sort of seeing the landscape. They always are ones to like push the boundary somewhat here and there. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a free to play game they found a way to sort of do, or if there was a free to play beta sort of offering they did sort of like in the July time frame, let people try it out, and then after that they're like, okay, we can release it in beginning of 2023.
Right.
But this is a complication for them that I don't know how they're going to necessarily solve, because the spring, to your point, would have been the best time to launch this title.
Well, especially considering we know that Tiger Woods pairing up with 2K, and HB Studios has not done anything short of hit a grand slam with every single one of their golf games, even before they had the 2K pairing. Now they've got the 2K partnership behind them, publishing. It used to be the Golf Club, now it's PGA Tour. I wouldn't want to go head to head with 2K right now,
No.
unless I was fully ready to go. And so that's where I say it's a bad thing. It's a disconcerting thing that it is delayed, but it's also a good thing because they're going to have to come out swinging first time. And we talked about this when it was first announced. The Masters is a big swing. Having the FedEx Cup is a big swing. Having those official courses, the official majors, is a big swing. But if it comes out and that's all it has, if it doesn't have gameplay, if it doesn't have something engaging past that, if it doesn't have an online mode, yeah, that is something that they're really going to have to clean up. And more power to them. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say, I'm happy that they're taking their time with this. Every other game that gets delayed, I say the same thing. I would rather it come out and be awesome than come out and have to be fixed for 3 months. So, which we know all about in sports games. So definitely still interested to see what it was. It was a very vague message on their Twitter today. I'm very interested to see just what the background's going to be and what this means for EA Sports with their golf title. A former EA Sports title that hasn't been out for a few years and will not be out for a couple more years is NCAA Football. So NCAA Football 14 has their rosters updated for 2021 through the joys of community roster share via Operation Sports for both the 360 and the PS3. Now, with college football revamped out, do you think that this has the same impact, or do you think the college football revamped has kind of taken over that spot?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still important. I think, not a lot. The steps to get to college football revamped on console are difficult, I think, for a lot of people, right? On PC, it's a little bit easier. But on console, it's definitely sort of a task, I'd say. But a lot of times the college football revamp team works very closely with the Operation Sports community that's sort of making these rosters anyway. So I think it'll impact both titles, but there are tons of people that still hold on to a 360 and PS3 solely for NCAA Football 14. So good news, you got new rosters coming your way.
Well, and I think also when it comes to college football revamped, correct me if I'm wrong, don't you need to modify a console to be able to run college football revamped, or is it actually able to be run with like altered files?
Yeah, so I think the 360 you have to like get a JTAG'd console, which you have to like send somewhere to have done typically, right, and then get it back. And then on PS3, you can sort of homebrew in a way, sort of like how you jailbreak an iPhone. So it's a little bit easier on PS3 to do it, but 360s, it's a problem. Yeah.
So there's a massive wall for console players to be able to play college football revamped, where as these rosters are readily available because EA keeps the NCAA 14 servers up, or as long as they do at this point.
Yeah.
This actually becomes more available for console players, whereas PC players, setting up college football revamped is not that hard. So again, they're on Operation Sports. Do we remember the name of the creator on there? I want to make sure that I know their community files in general, but I want to make sure that people actually get the right file. Give me 1 second, looking it up right now. NCAA 14, 2021, 2022. For the Xbox 360, you are looking for...
Well, on PS3, you're looking for VikesFan 059, VIKES Fan 059 on the PS3.
And on Xbox, you're looking for Neto Balla BR. It is NETO BALLABR. And the checks for those to make sure you have the right file. For the PS3 file, Northwestern will have a quarterback by the name of Andrew Marty. And for the Xbox version, Northwestern will have a wide receiver by the name of Donnie Gray. If you have those players on your teams, you have the correct file uploaded. So heads up on that. That's always a massive thing for NCAA football fans with where NCAA 14 is now, having those roster updates, and it's still being, still fairly, it's mid-season. We used to not get these until almost championship game time. So
Yep.
awesome if you guys want to get back into NCAA 14. Week in sports, massive week for baseball for two major reasons. First of all, the Atlanta Braves win the World Series in 6, highlighted by Jorge Soler, who was acquired at the trade deadline for a minor leaguer, being the World Series MVP. He hit 300 with 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, and 3 walks. And the key stat here is actually with those 3 home runs, all 3 of those home runs were putting the Braves ahead in the game when he hit them, including a 456-foot massive bomb in Game 6 that still hasn't landed. Tell me, from a personal standpoint, how do you feel about this series? Do you think the series was good for baseball? Are you happy with the outcome? Freddie Freeman, obviously, finally getting a title after 12 years. Talk to me about the Braves beating the Astros.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be personally honest. I didn't watch a ton of it, but I definitely watched the highlights every single night because it's just, I was streaming during a lot of it. But it was also exciting because, as I talked about last week, I still don't like the Astros, probably won't for a very long time. And so I wanted to see a team necessarily, take them out. That was great. There were some interesting things. The Soler home run is still, to your point, has not landed. It was a massive shot. And I think it's always cool when you hit a home run against Houston over the railroad tracks. Like, that is the power and force you to do that is unbelievable. Yeah. Shout out to Joe Buck, by the way, ruining Freddie Freeman's home run by talking about his impending free agency coming up at the end of the season.
Joe Buck is, I know there are some people that live and die by Joe Buck, but every time that I have a Fox broadcast up, I just cannot stand Joe Buck. Joe Buck feels like it's always something about him or something about what he wants to say, not about, he never lets anything breathe.
The moment,
and that's my problem with the World Series coverage. Couple of things here about Game 6 that really surprised me. First of all, Christian Javier, who's been lights out in the playoffs, he came into this game to relieve Luis Garcia, and also got tagged. Again, it's the World Series, so anything can happen. But I think Javier was kind of Dusty Baker's ace in the hole for this, bringing Luis Garcia back on 3 days rest after a strong Game 3. Garcia goes 2 2/3, 2 hits, a walk, 3 earned runs, all off the Jorge Soler home run. So not great. The other part of this is Max Fried, who got tagged in Game 2, came back on normal rest, went 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 6 strikeouts. 3 of those 4 hits were erased via double play. And that is exactly, if you remember when we were talking about the Braves Astros last week, I told you their 3 major starters have a reverse launch angle that are the top 18 in baseball. Max Fried did exactly what he had to do. He kept the ball down. He did not allow them to get balls out into the outfield. The Astros did not hit a home run in this game. Just unbelievable. And again, one more thing. Atlanta coach Snitker moved Ozzie Albies, who's been struggling all series, from the 2-hole down to the 7-hole, replaced him with Freddie Freeman, and then Eddie Rosario was starting off, who's been, you want to talk about someone earning a contract next year. Moved from 2nd to the 7th and legitimately sparked the rally that got the home run from Jorge Soler. So big time moves by the young manager for the Braves. Actually, on multiple occasions, outmanaged Dusty Baker. Question here now is Carlos Correa is a free agent. Freddie Freeman is a free agent. Correa was pretty much already told that he's not coming back next year. He said that he is going to go to a new team. I think the Yankees are one team that's been, said a lot. I think Detroit Tigers have been brought up as well. But Freddie Freeman, a guy that's been with the same team his entire career, and again, Joe Buck notwithstanding, the Braves have a good thing going. Do you think they can keep it together for longer? Does Freddie Freeman stay there maybe on a, hometown discount, or does Freddie Freeman go get paid?
This is an interesting thing, man. The Braves are, albeit a name change is well deserved for that franchise, but that franchise for me has always been one that has had those players for a long period of time and has had them for, the vast majority of their career. But they've also, known to let some players go when they necessarily aren't going to be performing as much as we necessarily think. Andrew Jones is one guy that comes to mind, right? He was a staple offensively, defensively for a long time. And then when he left Atlanta, he was sort of, not the same Andrew Jones that we had seen for, I guess, for a variety of reasons. I don't, the baseball fan in me doesn't want to see Freddie Freeman leave because he just feels like one of those classic, Atlanta players. But at the same time, if someone's going to offer him a massive contract that Atlanta can't afford, because they also have to pay a couple of their younger players that are coming up to him, Ronald Acuna Jr., who they didn't even have for the postseason run, mind you, blows my mind. That guy will have a massive contract, I think, at some point in the near future. So my heart says, I'd love to see Freddie Freeman stay there, but my head says go get paid, and I see him landing somewhere else.
It could be a very big offseason for the Major League Baseball. Freddie Freeman, Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario, all with the Braves, all with major parts in their postseason run. All of them upcoming free agents. Correa, Verlander, who will be back from Tommy John surgery, both free agents. Other stars are going to be like Corey Seager from the Dodgers, Trevor Story, Max Scherzer. I think Scherzer's already said that he wants to come back to LA. Marcus Semien, who had a great year north of the border in Toronto, well, half the year north of the border in Toronto. Chris Bryant, who helped the Giants along in their surprise year. Rizzo, who was with the Yankees, helping them get to the playoffs. Conforto with the Mets. Kevin Gausman, who kind of blew up this year with the Giants. About 160 in total. The problem is this, and this is going to bring up to the next story. And this is something that no one's talked about up until now. It's been a very kind of swept under the rug story that's going to get bigger as we get through November. For the first time possible since 1994, Major League Baseball could face their first lockout / work stoppage. A collective bargaining agreement expires at 11:59 p.m. on December 1st, which means that they do not have a new deal in place by 12/2. It will effectively shut down Major League Baseball during the height of its offseason, including the winter meetings 2 weeks later. Right now, the biggest issues are service time manipulation of rookies. And if you have 3 years of pro, 3 years in the majors, that's when your arbitration number comes up. 6 years to be a free agent. That just sounds crazy, doesn't it?
Unreal when you think about that.
Same team for 6 years before you get an opportunity at free agency.
Think about every other sport. It's crazy.
Right. And the thing with baseball is you don't immediately get put into the majors.
No.
Like this isn't even in the majors. You have to get to the major league before that clock starts. That's why you see a lot of teams holding their players until June, because they don't get a full season if they come. I believe it's late May or early June when they come up. If they
Chris
don't get
Bryant,
that time,
Kalenic, all those guys, yeah.
Yep. Adley Rushman right now is one of the reasons they're not bringing him up is because the Orioles don't believe they're going to be competitive, and they don't want to waste his service time. Service time is talked about in minor league moves all of the time. And again, this is manipulation by the owners to hold on to players longer. Players get drafted between 18 and 22 years old. Let's say it's 20 years old. They take one. This is a first rounder, okay?
Yeah.
First rounder sometimes takes 1 to 2 years to get to the majors. That puts them anywhere from 20 to 22 years old, which means they're not eligible for free agency until almost 28 years old, the prime of their career. And who knows if they're going to get injured at that time. And only like the upper 1% gets a deal that will eliminate arbitration. Like arbitration numbers keep numbers down. This is one of the big things of the CBA, but the problem is right now the players union doesn't have a lot to offer back. The players union with Major League Baseball is one of the strongest unions in sports. They get guaranteed money over 162 games. You can see Bobby Bonilla, their players still getting paid years after because of stupid deals, because the players union is so strong. The players are also want to share the league revenue. If you want to talk about more things that the players want, the owner's share of revenue is incredibly high right now. The players want more of that. I Here's what I'm going to say, and I'm not going to take a player side or owner side. I tend to lean more player side while understanding that it's still a business. I think service time manipulation is way the service time needed to become a free agent is way too high. That being said, baseball is at a teetering point right now. They just started to get fans back due to the whole, let the kids play movement. This lockout, what kind of impact could it have on Major League Baseball?
I mean, this is catastrophic in my opinion. This is going to put baseball either in one of two areas, right? Baseball really has the opportunity now to go post. You remember when you had sort of McGuire and Sammy Sosa doing the home run race, and they were sort of like that golden age. Baseball isn't obviously right there because home runs obviously rule everything, but baseball is much closer to that side than it was what it was before that sort of period of time with Bud Selig and everybody. I'm very careful because the players obviously have, this is the big thing. The players can push heavily for different things, the manipulation around sort of service time, all those different objects. They can push for that heavily, but if they do that, it's that weird thing of, okay, they may enter a lockout, may have a shortened season, you could miss a season. And we're coming off the hinges or the heels of just getting minor league players the opportunity to finally get some benefits, what they've needed. I mean, the housing situation for minor league players has been abysmal. I would not want to be one of the people negotiating on behalf of the MLBPA because you, again, are going to either push the hard fight of trying to get what you need from the owners, which historically don't want to give you a lot because they haven't necessarily had to, versus taking a really bad deal or a similar deal and then being locked into that for 8 to 12 years, whatever that essential period of time ends up being. I am hopeful they can find a happy medium because I think the owners have to realize, too, you just had empty stadiums for a while, right? The previous season was all played on empty stadiums on a short year. They lost revenue. I think both sides obviously want to get a deal done, but just how much will the owners give up historically across sports? It's usually not a lot. I am worried for baseball.
1994 highlighted one of the darkest times in MLB. The only thing that saved them was Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, chasing the home run records, and then Bonds chasing it a couple of years later. They're not going to have that again. The steroid era is over. No one comes close to those numbers right now. If anything, they're going to have significant changes, which they're proposing with universal DH or the double hook DH or any number of rules to upgrade the offense. If they lock out and if they miss the offseason, I think they survive it. If like 12-2 it locks out, but they get back a deal by like February 1st, I think they're okay. It's going to make for a very convoluted February to March because if you didn't know, when they're locked out, there's no moves that can be made. There's no free agency. There's no winter meetings. There's no Rule 5 draft. There's no arbitration. Nothing moves in baseball. It is completely frozen. So, but I still think they can get through that. If they miss any service time next year, if this goes into April, May, June, they're going to destroy everything they've built with their viewership, with their fans, with the youth that they're starting to bring in. They're going to break that trust and they're going to fall behind. They're already behind the NFL. They're going to fall behind a rapidly growing NBA who is going to wait for that moment and take over because the NBA, we've talked about this multiple times, they are doing everything right to target young viewership. You want to ask the question? Look at NBA 2K. NBA 2K, yes, I understand that it's a worldwide phenomenon. The reason it's growing is because basketball is growing with the youth. That is why it's the biggest game in the world right now in terms of, well, besides FIFA. But I mean, I'm talking of the 4 major American sports.
Yeah, and let's not forget also that whole March, April timeframe where we started to get hyped up about baseball when pitchers and catchers start reporting and we're just starting to see spring season baseball and, plays are hitting back on Sports Center. We all get excited. That's also the same time frame that March Madness hits. If there's any sport that is sort of universally loved, it is March Madness. People love college basketball and the pursuit of a Cinderella trying to make its way to the Final Four and hopefully win a title. there's a player every year we all fall in love with, and baseball does run the risk of the casual baseball fans seeing March Madness having nothing else to really compete, because that's sort of the lull of the NBA season. Also, that sort of March April time frame until you get to the final couple of games of the NBA season where you're really getting the playoff seeding and then moving into the playoff tournament. A lot of NBA fans sort of tune out because it's sort of a lot of load management. Players are being sat down. There's not as much excitement for it until those last few games. So I think you're right. Baseball really can't afford to miss any time of the actual season this year.
The NBA play-in tournament this year starts April 12th. The NHL playoff starts April 29th. March Madness finishes, I believe, the first week of April, right?
Yeah.
You want to lose your fan base, that's the quickest way. Because one of the two things that a lot of people that are, casual fans of the NBA and the NHL say are, I don't really watch the regular season, I tune in for the playoffs. And there are some big time playoff matchups that they didn't get last year because of the convoluted season, that on both sides, by the way, that they are waiting to grab a hold of. Baseball cannot mess this up, the players or the owners. If they do, they're in for a long road back for a lot of viewership. The long road. Okay, so I'm gonna try to be as civil as I can with this conversation, because I blew up over it a little earlier. I blew up on Twitter. I blew up on my stream. I'm gonna try to take this one civilly and as clean as I possibly can. Henry Ruggs, early Tuesday morning, was found at the scene of a crash with his green Corvette into the back of a Toyota RAV4. He had collided with them outside of about a block away from the Vegas Strip. The RAV4 caught on fire. We now know the name of the name of the victim is Tina Tintor. There are now pictures going all over social media about her. She's 23 years old. The RAV4 caught on fire after Henry Ruggs collided. Henry Ruggs' car collided with them, and the driver passed in the fire. Henry Ruggs and his passenger, a female passenger, had non-life-threatening injuries. The story here is that it was found that Henry Ruggs was 2 times the legal limit of blood alcohol level. He was traveling at 156 miles an hour plus. And if you've ever been in Vegas, around the Vegas Strip, you know there is nowhere around that area you should be doing even a third of that speed. He was released from the Raiders today, but let's be honest, who cares? He is facing a second-degree felony DUI with that results in death in Nevada that does not allow for probation. That is a 2 to 20-year sentence. Opinion, that's not enough. And massive fines. Henry Ruggs has ruined his life and career. More importantly, he's murdered another person. I know DUI by the law, the letter of the law, it's not murder. I understand that. But he has taken a motor vehicle, inebriated and completely reckless, and murdered a young woman who is now a daughter, a sister, and will not be able to live her life. He's taken that from her. Can I just say before I let you comment, just there is absolutely no reason in this day and age to sit behind a wheel of a car when you are inebriated in any way. Not to give more of an excuse, but the NFL has a phone line that you can call to get a driver wherever you're at. So let's be fair. What Henry Ruggs was doing was selfish. What Henry Ruggs was doing was idiotic. And more importantly, what Henry Ruggs was doing was avoidable. Henry Ruggs should be put up as a warning sign to everybody, not just millionaires, not just athletes, although athletes should absolutely know better, know that they're the focal point in the public. They're gonna get judged. But he should be a warning sign for everybody. Please, for the love of, if you have a human soul, understand that if you get behind the wheel of a vehicle drunk, you are not going to hurt yourself. You'll be lucky if you hurt yourself. You're going to kill somebody else like Henry Ruggs did.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you said much better than I would have said in a lot of different ways. But I think, to harbor on, it's an incredibly selfish thing to do, to drive drunk or under the influence of whatever, I think you run the risk of, again, not just impacting your own life, but impacting the lives of others. And that is someone's child that can't come home now. That is someone's sister that cannot come home now, right? That could have been someone's parent that now essentially doesn't have that opportunity, right? And it's one of those things where I wish people would just take a second to, like, it's not just that person having accountability for themselves and being like, yo, I've drank and he was 2 times the legal limit. So, like, okay, you've had a significant amount of drinking or you're planning to do that. Like, spend the 30 seconds to text somebody and be like, hey, can you pick me up tonight? Or we have Uber, we have Lyft, we have a zillion different car services you can essentially do. You're also a multimillionaire by this point. You can, or will be, depending on how much you've been paid at this point. You could have easily called for a car service or something. This is Las Vegas. This is not a place that is short of finding any of those services to help you out in any way, shape, or form. It's one of those things that I also hope that other people in your own personal lives, like, if you've seen this Henry Ruggs story, like, one, I hope your first thought isn't about Henry Ruggs. I hope it's about, obviously, the individual that is now dead. But I hope you take it in your own right to, one, not drink and drive, but two, when you have friends that you're out with or whatever, and you see they've been drinking a little bit too much, like, take their keys. They may be pissed off at you, they may be angry at you, but I promise you that person would rather be pissed off at you than dead. And so if you value any of your friendships or any people that you have in your own life that are, don't know their limit or don't have enough self-control to not get behind a wheel after they've had significant amounts of alcohol or alcohol in general, be the bigger person, step up, take their keys. They might be mad at you, they might hate you, but it's better letting them hate you than not seeing them ever again.
Or you might be saving somebody else's life.
Sure.
Yeah, I won't even say might be. You will be saving somebody else's life, because for all the stories you hear about people that have driven drunk and hurt somebody, I can promise you there are stories you don't hear on a nightly basis about how people die from this. I'm one of those people affected, so that's why I get a little emotional about it. It's why I'm a little more aggravated when I see stupid people do stupid things. And again, Ruggs, the lady that was in his car, anyone that was around him before that, like, so many avoidable consequences just by saying no, or just by having an Uber, or you know what, you're rich, flex, bring a limo out, man, bring a limo, like, do whatever you want to do. You don't have to flex in your green Corvette. Believe me, you bet you won't be driving it anymore. Bet you they're not going to allow it in the prison you're going to, brother. So rightfully so. I hope somebody throws the book at him, just because you got to keep giving examples, because people just don't learn, unfortunately. So, speaking about not learning, this is going to be a transition. Aaron Rodgers is going to be out versus Kansas City this weekend with a positive COVID test. Now, normally, this isn't a big deal. Hey, people get COVID all the time. Saquon Barkley's in COVID protocol, and he was completely vaccinated. Well, according to Aaron Rodgers, he was immunized, right? He was immunized against the vaccine. So that means he got shots, right? Right, GGB? He's been vaccinated, right? That's what immunized mean, right?
You would think.
So when asked, they found out, oh wait, he's not vaccinated. He's immunized as part of an alternate treatment that he got prior to training camp. He then petitioned the NFL and the players union to allow him to be treated as somebody or as somebody who had been vaccinated. And they said, no, you have to have consideration. The same consideration will go to you, to anyone that is unvaccinated. It's not FDA approved. I think it was homeopathic therapy, which, don't get me wrong, there's some great homeopathic therapy. If it's not FDA approved, you're not getting it. You're not getting through. And the best part about this is like the people that are like, hey, but I've already had the vaccine. I have the pathogens now. I'm ready to go. No, you're not vaccinated. It's not how it works. So the best part here is Aaron Rodgers also, after referring to himself as immunized multiple times, was treated differently in press conferences as well. All of the unvaccinated players that are for the Green Bay Packers are normally put on Zoom calls, not in in-person media sessions. Aaron Rodgers multiple times sat in front of the media without a mask on, mind you. He for what it's worth, he does use his mask at all the practices. People say he's very strict about that. But in front of media, in auditoriums or press conferences, he was unmasked because he said he was immunized. I don't even know where to go with this. I really don't. We're in the middle we're at the end of 2021. We are still wearing masks in so many places because people just don't listen. And Aaron Rodgers decides to become president of the homeopathic vaccination, I guess. What in the world is Aaron Rodgers doing?
I have been on record about how much I love Aaron
Oh wait,
Rodgers.
hold on. Let me stretch back for this. I need this one. I need this in my life. I'm gonna get comfortable. I want everybody on the podcast. If you're just listening to this in the background, please just turn it up an extra notch. Listen to GGB because there's gonna be a lot of words eaten right now, and I'm gonna think a couple pieces of crow as well. Please go ahead.
I have been on the record of how much I love Aaron Rodgers.
How much do you love Aaron Rodgers?
I think he's the greatest quarterback of all time. I think he's the greatest quarterback
of all time. Okay, so better than Tom Brady, better than Joe Montana, better than his predecessor Brett Favre, even though he treats his understudy the same way Favre treated him.
Yes. I'm not saying that he's a perfect person. I'm not saying his personality is the top 10 of all time. I'm not saying he should win
might
some
be,
award.
but just so we're clear, might be, a little bit of a douche.
I think here's where Mills will love this conversation. I think the NFL has to suspend Aaron Rodgers for the remainder of the regular season. You can't have someone doing what he's doing of putting media and other people at risk of essentially doing the I didn't lie, I just wasn't telling the truth all the way sort of thing. That is incredibly dangerous. It sets an incredibly bad precedent. And you have had situations where your unvaccinated players like Cam Newton, for example, have been sort of told like, yo, we're not going to bring this dude up at all. There may be other reasons, but I'm using Cam Newton as an example of one of the most popular unvaccinated players in the NFL. Like there were a large reason why Cam Newton was cut from what we've been told is because of the vaccination status for him. Talent-wise, there were some concerns there, obviously, but vaccination status was a big thing for him. And so for Rodgers to be publicly deceiving the public in general about sort of his vaccination status, it sets a really wrong thing for the NFL. And in my opinion, the NFL just can't do the thing of, okay, he's out for this week and then he'll come back. Like you have to reprimand him in some way, shape, or form, or else you're creating a larger issue at hand for the league. Rodgers is great. He's one of the most popular players in the league. His personality will rub some people wrong, like Mills, will make other people laugh because of his sort of dry sense of humor. But you have to do something here. You cannot let Aaron Rodgers just walk away scot-free on this one.
And let me be clear about this because I don't want to be viewed as somebody who's, you got to get vaccinated. No, listen, if you want to take your choice of not being vaccinated, so be it. That is your choice as a human being, your body, right? But then you need to face the consequences and you need to face what the world is coming to. That means if you're not, you need to wear your mask in places that maybe you didn't have to. If you don't, that means you probably have to tell people, hey, look, I'm not immunized. I'm not vaccinated. That's the answer. Are you vaccinated for COVID-19? The answer is not I'm immunized. It's you're not vaccinated. And that's okay. If you're so proud of it, speak up and say it. That's my problem with Aaron Rodgers here is, like you said, he's unnecessarily putting other people at risk by doing this. By the way, one of those people that he puts at risk, Aaron Jones, his father died in April from complications of COVID-19. Now, Aaron Jones was asked about this specifically. Aaron Jones gave the team-friendly answer. Aaron Jones will always do that. That's the type of guy Aaron Jones is and has been his entire career. He said he's our leader. Like you said, he's 100% committed to the team, just like anybody else in the locker room. That's fine. To have that little respect for the people around you, including the media around you. I'm going to say this again. I know I've said this a million times. I will say it until I'm blue in the face. Aaron Rodgers is a fantastic quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is a diva that believes he's better than everybody. And every time he gets called out on his BS, he just grounds the grind just a little bit more. Just goes a little bit further into it. Every time he gets called out, he just gets this little twang about him, this little cockiness about him, like, oh, hey, what's up? Relax. Remember that? Relax. It's okay. We got this under control. Every single time it happens. And that is what is causing these issues. That's why Aaron Rodgers will not be a Green Bay Packer next year. And you better be real careful. I know they're 7-1. Jordan Love's starting against the Kansas City Chiefs, man. I could throw for 300 against the Kansas City Chiefs at this point, and I might be throwing left-handed because I got a really bad, some got a tear in my shoulder, man. I'm telling you, Jordan Love, 300, 3 tutties in that offense this weekend.
This just, again, to your point earlier, though, the reason why this is a big deal and the reason why I'm saying he needs to be suspended for a period of time is because of he's in violation of an insane amount of COVID protocols, right? There are lists about what players who are vaccinated versus what players that are unvaccinated can essentially do, or how they need to essentially operate within team facilities, whether it's the weight room, whether it's the media, all these different things. Let's not forget that Aaron Rodgers was dressed up as John Wick dancing to Who's Shiesty, I think, if I remember correctly. The
yes,
track.
I remember that. Yeah. That was actually funny. I'll give him that. That was pretty good.
But it's as much as I love Aaron Rodgers, like, this is egregious. He knew what he was doing the entire time, and he'll toe the line, but he essentially was deceiving people around COVID, and it has major complications for other people and how they can be essentially have their health impacted. So I hope the NFL does have some form of punishment for him outside of just a fine.
Speaking of people that are going to get punished, and probably already have by this point, Odell Beckham Jr. Did everything in his power to get away from the Cleveland Browns. Well, maybe not everything in his power, but everything in Odell Beckham Sr.'s power to get away from the Cleveland Browns. Odell Beckham Sr. had a video post of Baker Mayfield throwing the ball to multiple receivers on the Cleveland Browns. One of those people was not Odell Beckham Jr., and the video pointed out how many times Odell Beckham Jr. was wide open and Mayfield hadn't thrown to him. He also, I think, commented on another Instagram post calling Mayfield mediocre. Beckham Sr. responded, #BigFacts. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. is not commenting on this at all, but you're not going to tell me that Odell Beckham Sr. is doing this without having talked to his son. Baker Mayfield was interviewed about this. As naturally, he wants his son to succeed. I can't blame him for that. I want Odell to succeed. That's where we're at, or at least I thought. He also says, I had conversations with his dad before, man-to-man, face-to-face, and I was pretty surprised by the video and the intentions and the feelings behind it. And he scoffed at the allegation. I would be lying if I said otherwise, he said he deliberately has not thrown Beckham's way this season. I have an interesting take on this, so I want you to go first.
Yeah.
Odell Beckham Jr. is what's going on right for him?
This is such a weird thing, right? First of all, I refuse to believe that I don't think Odell Beckham Sr. made the video, the 11-minute video or like whatever about his son getting open, solely because he's a dude. I looked at where he's from. He's from the state of Texas. And I don't think a dude from the heart of Texas football is going to make a highlight video using REM as the artist of choice for the soundtrack.
It's a very good point.
I think that may have been circulated by some Browns fan, and then he got wind of it, took it, uploaded it, whatever, or maybe he hired someone to do it. I don't know. That part was weird to me. The other part is, I think Stefanski is somewhat to blame here because, and maybe it's Stefanski just working with what he has, but Baker, like, if you look at a lot of these throws, Baker is doing a one read. There's no processing the field. There are simple play actions, or there are simple 3-4 step dropbacks, and then literally taking one read, and that's what he's essentially going with. That play that showed the tight end, or Odell, I can't remember who essentially was being wide open and went viral on Twitter. That's one of the easiest ones to see, where literally Baker's coming back. He's taking his first read. He's immediately going there, and he is not looking anywhere else in the field. He is staring it down heavily.
Yeah.
I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is the guy that he was in New York.
Not at all.
But I don't think even the version of Odell we have now is a very good NFL receiver. Not a great receiver, but a very good NFL receiver. The Browns need to be spreading the ball around. They have an insane amount of weapons. A lot of people are at fault. Odell Beckham Sr., Baker, Stefanski, Odell, I'm sure to some point as well. But just let this man go somewhere else. If you're not going to use him and you're going to hold him as sort of a hostage in that offense and not let him get the ball at all, cut your losses. Let him go be somewhere else where he can go. Let him go back home to Louisiana and go to the Saints like it was rumored to.
This entire situation falls on the shoulders of one man, and that's Baker Mayfield. 100% Odell Beckham Sr. is right, and it's something that analysts have pointed out all year. Baker Mayfield has two reads, his first one and his check down. Baker Mayfield, and you can tell me about his injured non-throwing arm. You can tell me about his offensive line, who before the season was, Pro Football Focus, top 5. They've put everything around Baker Mayfield to succeed. They had Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, 2 pass-catching tight ends, 3 receivers, including a rookie, Adam Toshman, that is Toshman? I don't remember his last. Everyone knows the kid I'm talking about, all right? They have a a very good defense, okay? Odell Beckham Jr. has been open a lot. And because he plays on Baker's non-read side, he does the same thing Jalen Hurts does. People started playing Jalen Hurts to one side of the field because all Jalen Hurts does is look to his right. He never looks back to his left. It's insane. And I've been preaching that Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback, okay? I'm not going to say he's not a good quarterback. He has made plays happen. He is not a quarterback that's going to get you to the Super Bowl. He is not a quarterback that's going to get you into a deep playoff run. And he's not a quarterback that's going to give you any kind of consistency at the quarterback position. He is the problem in Cleveland. And I promise you, when year 4 comes around and that year 5 extension is up, he's not going to sign it because they're not going to throw money at him. They're going to move on. They have too much talent on that team for Baker Mayfield to be the reason. And Odell Beckham Sr., you know what he's doing? He's just shining light on the fact that Baker Mayfield has, maybe not willfully, but has ignored Odell Beckham Jr. on the field for the entirety of the time they have been together as a pairing. There's no reason Odell Beckham Jr. should have 1 target for 6 catches, or 1 target for 6 yards last week, okay? He has been woefully underused, okay? And I agree. I really hope he gets released. I hope he gets released by the Browns. I know Stefanski was telling players today, the rumor is he's telling players to treat it like OBJ is no longer on this team. I hope they release him because he's going to sign with another team that's going to use him correctly. You know what? I would love to see Odell Beckham Jr. in the Ravens. I don't think it happens. I think he's too much of a distraction to be brought into an organization like that. But I'd love to see him on like a fringe playoff team really make an impact this year because that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think a team like Baltimore, I don't think he'd be a major distraction on Baltimore just because Baltimore is full of passionate people, right? Even your head coach is a passionate dude. And I think Odell would sort of be good with that. And I think it also gives you a huge weapon for Lamar to have. Like, I think Odell's route running is still pretty good right now. He's more of an over-the-top guy, I think, more than anything still, even though his speed isn't what it was in New York after all these injuries. But it seemed like Baltimore absolutely could use him. The Saints make sense for being back home, but they don't really have anyone to throw to him unless Drew Brees decides to suit up on Sundays again. Jameis being out with that torn ACL. So, look, Odell, I hate seeing a guy that still has talent.
For what you say about the Saints, Michael Thomas being ruled out for the season today.
Oh, yeah, they're done.
Due to the same ankle. What was wrong with his? It's like a slinky at this point. Yeah. Whatever it is. Please continue.
Yeah, but I just want to see Odell, who still has talent, who's still a passionate player, who can still contribute to a team. I just want to see him go to a playoff team, right? Or I want to see him back in the playoffs really more than anything because, like, Odell is similar in mindset to Terrell Owens, I think, where he's this dude that will give you everything. If you were meeting him at that mark and you're pushing yourself as much as you possibly can, I think Odell will be right there for you and he will fight. I don't think that's a guy that gives up on a passionate team. So let Odell go somewhere that will use him. That's all I want to see.
You know what I'd love to see? Especially considering they just got rid of a low used receiver mutually after trying to trade him. They just released Deshaun Jackson.
The Rams.
Can you imagine the Rams adding OBJ to Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods.
Good God.
You think OBJ wouldn't get used there? 100% he would. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and Odell Beckham Jr. That's what I need. And they just got $9 million back for Von Miller in that trade. They gave up the second and third pick, but they got $9 million back to make sure their cap number was okay. I'd love to see Odell Beckham Jr. go there and just shove it down Cleveland's throat.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be real with you, man.
Stafford's throwing for 6,000 this season if he gets Odell then, because the one-on-one coverage he has for his guys is insane. And Cooper Kupp is putting up historic numbers.
Yes or no? Is Baker Mayfield on this team after his rookie contract?
So this is year 3 for him, right? So year 4 would be next year.
Year 3, yeah. So year 4 is next year. That would mean the year after that would be. They have to make a decision on his 5th year extension in year 4. Yeah. Like they have to know that. They have to know that going into the season.
I just think because of how hard it is to get quarterbacks in free agency, good quarterbacks in free agency, I should say, and where they're probably going to be drafting, they're not going to be drafting inside of the top 18 any of these years. I still think they sign Baker, but they're going to do a deal that is a heavily incentivized. It'll be like Kaepernick's deal, I think, when he was with the 49ers, when he signed that massive, like $175 million deal, but the vast majority of it was not guaranteed. I think they're going to force Baker to do something like that. I still think he stays in Cleveland. They find a way to trade him to a team, but I think they still sign him. Because getting a franchise quarterback is so difficult. I think they have to keep him for that reason. It's just going to be down to the wire for that contract.
I agree that if he signs, it's going to have to be heavily incentivized. They're not going to give him all the guaranteed money. That's one of the reasons I don't think he resigns. I think he thinks that he deserves a bigger deal, and he tries to go somewhere else. The Cleveland Browns currently, I know I said one more question, but let me ask you this. The Cleveland Browns are currently 4-4. The rest of their schedule is as follows. At Cincinnati this weekend. At New England after that. The Lions. A home and home with the Ravens, including I think that game is the 28th on Thanksgiving? No, that's Sunday night after Thanksgiving. So it is a Sunday night game. So at Ravens, then versus Ravens in Cleveland. They've got Raiders, at Packers, at Steelers versus Bengals. They've got a gauntlet coming up. I'm going to give them, let's go win-loss here. I'm going to give them a split against the Bengals. That's 5-5. I'm going to say they lose in New England. That's 5-6. They beat the Lions. I'm going to be generous in saying they split with the Ravens. That's 7-7. They lose at home versus the Raiders. I'll give them a win, but they lose at Packers. And I think they lose at Steelers. Dude, that's under 500 for the season on a team that was the sexy pick to be in the Super Bowl. Like that was where people were picking them this year. If you're Cleveland, man, there's only one finger to point, man. There's only one finger to point. Their defense has not been awful. Their offensive line has not been awful. Their receivers are there. Chubb, you could say Chubb and Hunt were hurt, but Dearness Johnson just went out and put 120 yards down as a backup. Dude, everything is there for Baker Mayfield, except Baker Mayfield.
I hear you. It's a hard part for me because Baker personifies the Cleveland Browns fan base as a quarterback more than I think any other quarterback probably has, right? And I think Baker handles himself really well in the media. Like even the presser he had about getting asked about, the Odell stuff, like he's handled it really well. And so I think the Browns will still be above 500 because I think Stefanski's still calling, I think, for the most part, solid games. It's just they need Baker to be able to sling that rock a little bit down the field. And that defense is so good. Like that is the part that gives me hope for the Browns, is how good that defense essentially is. And they have 2 games against the Bengals, right? They have their next game and then the end of the season. The Bengals are, I think, again, I made the allusion to them previously. They're the Milwaukee Bucks a couple of years ago, where like they are going to be a great team. I think they're outplaying how good they actually are right now. Burrow obviously is a stud, but I'm going to give the Browns like a +2 record by the end of the season, but it's going to be tough for them. For Baker and for Stefanski, there's going to be a lot of questions to be answered in these next couple of games.
Last topic, because I know he's your favorite. I know he's your boy. Okay, listen, I'm actually kind of on his side on this a little bit. Scottie Pippen has come out recently and said that Michael Jordan couldn't have been more condescending if he tried regarding The Last Dance on ESPN, and he's also stated that multiple of his teammates have said the same thing, maybe not as publicly. He's also has to be fair, Scottie Pippen also has an upcoming memoir called Unguarded. So the timing is a little weird. Let's be fair here, but Scottie Pippen talking about Michael Jordan being condescending. Michael Jordan's had this reported about him multiple times. People have said he does have kind of that his airness feel. Is this just a stunt for the book, or is Scottie Pippen legitimately hurt? Especially with every time the NBA 75 or the NBA 50 comes out, he's always on it, but the story always comes out is Scottie on it because of MJ, or is Scottie on it in his own rights?
I am probably the incorrect person to ask about this, because you know how passionate I am about how good Scottie Pippen was as a basketball player. I literally have his jersey in my closet here, and I'm getting it framed. We moved to Charlotte and hanging it on the wall. It's the only jersey I have ever cared about having. I was not a Michael Jordan kid. I don't really wear any Jordans, even though I have a couple in the closet just for collector's reasons. I am the biggest Scottie Pippen fanboy that is not in his family, in my opinion. I can't imagine how difficult it has to be one of the greatest basketball players of all time, to be the original really point forward in the NBA, to really revolutionize a lot of that, to be the shutdown defender for that team that helped them win so many championships, that really when Michael Jordan decided he wanted to play baseball and retire for the zillionth time, he still led that team to essentially the same record, plus or minus 2 to 3 games, led them in points, rebounds, assists, steals, all that stuff, right? Pippen is an incredible player who has been the brunt of a joke for far too long. And I think what essentially happens is, if you were so good, imagine if you were really good at your job, right? And you're so good at everything you do, and you're always just the number 2 salesman, right? Or the number 2 person. And every time you're given a prop, it's always, I'm glad that, this person, the number 1 salesman, was able to help you out. They've done so much for you, and everything for your success was attributed to another individual. That is draining and that is frustrating. And I think Pippen at a point had been far enough removed from his career where he was okay at that. And then when The Last Dance came out, as good as The Last Dance was as a documentary, it is Jordan propaganda. There is no way you can watch that and say that Michael Jordan wasn't heavy-handed, and this wasn't Michael Jordan telling the story that Michael Jordan wanted to. Michael Jordan is the hero. No one was saying that was a great Chicago Bulls documentary. No, everyone was saying that is a great Michael Jordan documentary, because essentially that is what it was. So for Pippen, I hate to see him still this far removed from his career, this frustrated, this angry, needing to lash out. His book, he takes a lot of shots at Michael Jordan, and a lot of it, honestly, is what we've heard for years. Some of that is, I think, Pippen trying to gain that, I was very good, please acknowledge how good I was, sort of thing. What I would love to see is a Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen sit down conversation. But I also don't want to see it, because I can't imagine that Scottie would get anything out of it outside of just telling Michael directly his feelings, and Jordan just being the terrible human being that we've known that he is and just saying terrible things to Scottie. So I hope, if nothing else, this gives Scottie Pippen a sort of closure that he needs to a degree. But I just unfortunately don't think it will.
Spoiler alert, it won't.
Yeah.
It won't. Scotty's had a chip on his shoulder for a very long time, and I'm with you. I think it's a warranted chip. It is something that I think Michael, every time you see Michael in this conversation, he talks for the brand. That's 100% what it is. He puts on the brand face, and I think that really digs at Scotty. I think it digs at Scotty more than anybody else in that Bulls team, because Scotty was Robin. He was Robin to Michael's Batman.
Yep.
And he shouldn't have been. To make a comic reference, Batman was one of the founding members of the Justice League. Robin wasn't. Robin was an afterthought. Scotty doesn't deserve that. Scotty deserves a spot at the table of the Justice League. He was that good. And I agree with you. People look at him in his time in Portland, and, he was not terrible in Portland, but he had
injuries.
the injuries started to pile up, and people see him at the end of his career without Michael, and that's what they focus on. They don't focus on the fact, like you said, that when Michael wasn't handling the ball, it wasn't the guards in Chicago that did. It was Scotty. Scotty was the guy. Scotty was the main ball handler. The reason that triangle offense worked is because Scotty made it work, and Scotty and MJ together made it work. It wouldn't have worked with just MJ. MJ needed that second guy. And you saw what happened. I hate to bring this up, but you saw what happened when MJ doesn't have that guy, even an aging MJ with the Wizards.
Well, look at before. Look at how many issues Jordan had against Scotty. Jordan lost in the first round multiple times in his career before Scotty ever got there. Like, he didn't make that hump or jump that hump until he had Scottie Pippen to help him take out the bad boys, right? Like, there was so much they essentially needed. And as much as people, I'll bring up LeBron, as much as people give LeBron all these sort of like unneeded sort of comparisons or unneeded shots to his career, the Bulls team had 4 Hall of Famers on it. You had Jordan, you had Pippen, you had Rodman, and you had Kukoc, who you can argue is in there for his international stuff. He still played in the NBA, and if he's recognized internationally, those skill sets didn't drop off when he came to the NBA. They had 4 Hall of Famers, not all on all 6 of those teams, but 3 of those guys were there for a very long time. So I can't imagine how tough it has to be one of the 50 greatest of all time at what you do, and still feel the need of people don't give you your due because you happen to play with a person who is viewed as the greatest of all time.
Remind me one of these days, because I think this goes along with it. Remind me, we need to bring up the JJ Redick comments at some point about 50s, 60s, and 70s players playing today, and saying that the generational question, like who could play when. So JJ Redick had a very good comment, and he's got a podcast now that is very, very good. So I'm really excited for that. So wrap us up, brother. We're done with the day.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up a Duke player, by the way. Go Duke. But hey, great podcast as well today, Mills. We covered a lot. Again,
I love Duke. I love Duke.
If you haven't already, make sure you check out Riders Republic and then Forza Horizon 5, which will Riders Republic is already available, and then Forza will be available the day after this podcast drops, so on this upcoming Friday. So make sure you check them out. They're great games. And we'll be back next week where hopefully Mills doesn't do that really bad Duke fan impression. Be safe, be smart, tell somebody you love them. Catch you guys in the next one.
I love Duke. Ciao.